Hey yo, and welcome to Brawl. My name is Brian, and Tulsi goes on an absolutely epic rant here and forces every Democrat in the room to face the music. This is one rant you really want to watch. Let's dive in.
I'm honored and grateful to President Trump for his trust and confidence in nominating me to serve our country as the Director of National Intelligence at a time when trust in the intelligence community, unfortunately, is at an all-time low. Chuck Schumer admitted a few years ago, quote, "You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you." For too long, faulty, inadequate, or weaponized intelligence have led to costly failures and the undermining of our national security and God-given freedoms enshrined in the Constitution. The most obvious example of one of these failures is our invasion of Iraq based upon a total fabrication or complete failure of intelligence. This disastrous decision led to the deaths of tens of thousands of American soldiers, millions of people in the Middle East, mass migration, destabilization, and undermining of the security and stability of our European allies, the rise of ISIS, strengthening of al-Qaeda and other Islamist jihadist groups, and strengthening Iran. Here are just a few other examples. The American people elected Donald Trump as their president not once but twice. And yet the FBI and intelligence agencies were politicized by his opponents to undermine his presidency and falsely portray him as a puppet of Putin. Title I of FISA was used illegally to obtain a warrant to spy on Trump campaign advisor Carter Page, using a Clinton campaign-funded false dossier as their so-called evidence. Biden campaign advisor Tony Blinken was the impetus for the 51 former senior intelligence officials' letter dismissing Hunter Biden's laptop as disinformation specifically to help Biden win the election. Former DNI James Clapper lied to this committee in 2013, denying the existence of programs that facilitated the mass collection of millions of Americans' phone and internet records, yet was never held accountable. Under John Brennan's leadership, the CIA abused its power to spy on Congress, to dodge oversight, lied about doing it until he was caught, and yet has never been held responsible. Under Biden, the FBI abused its power for political reasons to try to surveil Catholics who attend traditional Latin Mass, labeling them as quote-unquote radical traditionalist Catholics. Personally, just 24 hours after I criticized Kamala Harris and her nomination, I was placed on a secret domestic terror watch list called Quiet Skies. Sadly, there are more examples. The bottom line is this must end. President Trump's re-election is a clear mandate from the American people to break this cycle of failure, end the weaponization and politicization of the intelligence community, and begin to restore trust in those who've been charged with the critical task of securing our nation. If confirmed as DNI, I will do my very best to fulfill this mandate and bring leadership to the intelligence community with a laser-like focus on our essential mission, ensuring the safety, security, and freedom of the American people. As the President's principal intelligence advisor, I'll begin by leading by example, checking my own personal views at the door, and committing to delivering intelligence that is collected, analyzed, and reported without bias, prejudice, or political influence. I enlisted in the Army because of the horrific terrorist attack on September 11th and volunteered to deploy to Iraq in 2005, where I served in a medical unit. After nearly 22 years in uniform with 3 combat deployments to the Middle East and Africa, I'm now a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve, where I serve as a battalion commander of soldiers in Oklahoma, Missouri, and Arkansas. I served in Congress for 8 years on the Homeland Security, Foreign Affairs, and Armed Services committees. And it's my experience in the military and in the halls of Congress that have given me a deep understanding of the complex challenges that our nation faces, in both roles engaging with world leaders, in both roles being privy to highly classified intelligence. So I know firsthand how essential accurate, unbiased, and timely intelligence is to the President, to Congress, and to our warfighters.
Y'all, I hope she gets it. I really hope that she becomes the head of the Department of National Intelligence. Because deep down, I think we all know that the CIA, the FBI, even the Department of Justice was weaponized and used against the American people. And this has been a trend ever since the CIA was ever created, y'all. But now it's taken a sinister turn. Instead of going after actual threats to potential to the country, we have now seen it turn against normal everyday Americans. Okay, that's a problem. Just for lack of a better word, that's a problem. And so reining these folks in and taking back the ridiculous, just how weaponized the FBI was during the Biden administration, let me put it to you this way. They went after people who had the guts to stand up to school board members that were putting disgusting things in their kids' curriculum. Then they went after Catholics who dared to be pro-life. Okay, this is unusual. Okay, for the FBI, the CIA, they've been doing clandestine stuff ever since they were started. But the FBI, they used to go after the mafia. Okay, they used to go after major criminals that cross state lines. That's the whole point of the FBI. And then I think ever since DB Cooper fled the scene, they've never really been able to get a handle on what they're supposed to do anymore. All kidding aside, the reality is these departments need to be reined in because they're going after average everyday Americans. And Tulsi delivers a rant that I believe we all need to listen to and understand. But there's a problem. I don't think she's going to get the nomination. I hope she does, but I don't think so. Here's a Josh Hawley was talking with The Hill the other day, and he was talking to Jesse Waters, my apologies, and he told Waters not to pretend everything's fine, dandy, and hunky-dory in the intelligence community. It's not. And of course he's right on that. We need reform, but he continues on in that article to basically say there's a couple of Republicans that had some red flags about Tulsi Gabbard. And also in The Hill, so Senator James Langford asked whether Gabbard views Snowden, the guy who blew the whistle on the NSA spying scandal, and asked her if she would label Snowden as a traitor. She refused. That's setting off a whole bunch of red flags in Senate circles, and I'm merely going to explain why they're thinking the way they're thinking. Because on his face, Edward Snowden is by definition a traitor. Okay? Now, did he do anything morally wrong? No, Americans kind of needed to know that, hey, you're being spied on. This might be unconstitutional. This might be a problem. That's the good kind of whistleblower. That's the good kind of red flags that we need in order to keep ourselves humble, for just lack of a better word. There's a better word out there, and I'll figure it out later tonight when I go to sleep and go, oh, that's the word I needed to use. But no, Edward Snowden is by definition a traitor. He blew the whistle on a major spying scandal and by definition betrayed the country. The thing is, he did so for good reasons. This isn't a Benedict Arnold situation where he kept on getting screwed over by the Continental Congress and then finally said, you know what, forget this whole revolution thing, I'm switching sides. That is the worst kind of traitor. Okay? Granted, Benedict Arnold was a hero. We might not have had American independence without him. But because of what he ended up doing towards the end of the war, when he switched sides, all because he didn't feel like he was getting the respect he deserved, that's a different kind of betrayal. That's one where you're betraying the cause. That's one where you're betraying your colleagues. That's one where you're betraying everything that you said you once believed in, and all for money. Edward Snowden has not seen a dime for blowing the whistle on this. As a matter of fact, he's still a fugitive, basically, to this day. And because Tulsi Gabbard won't label him the way they want to be labeled, the way some senators want him to be labeled, yeah, they're going to have some problems with that. Because the Senate operates under sort of these different rules. It's basically a big boy club. It's basically a country club, which, of course, we're not invited to. And so they operate a little bit differently, but let's be honest here. We need to ask ourselves a simple question. And it's not whether Snowden betrayed the country. It's whether we need someone to rein in the Department of National Intelligence. The simple answer is yes. Tulsi Gabbard has promised to do this. And a whole bunch of Republicans are sitting there stroking their beards and going, I'm not so sure about this. I'm a little bit surprised, but then again, these are your more squishy Republicans. These are your, not your Tom Cottons. These are your Cornyrans over in Texas, who essentially aren't really conservative, definitely aren't MAGA, and want to go back to the status quo. We can't go back to that status quo, okay? We need a Department of National Intelligence that is serving the American people underneath the bounds of the Constitution without violating our basic fundamental rights. We deserve this. Tulsi Gabbard has promised to do this while in office. That's why I hope she goes through the nomination, but don't be surprised if a couple of Republicans at the last second say no to this one and Trump's going to have to pick another person to head up this department. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Politibro. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. And until then, y'all have a good one.